All right. Welcome back to another prophecy update. My name is Marco, pastor at Community Church of Devore, and we thank you for watching. I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location where I'm filming one of these prophecy updates. Most Bible scholars and teachers have different opinions about China and the CCP government as to where it fits into Bible's prophecy. Some believe they're one of the kings of the East. Some believe they'll be one of the components of the kings of the East. Some believe they'll have nothing to do with Bible prophecy. And some believe they'll just go down as any other nation under the Antichrist. Whatever the case may be, the CCP has been at the forefront of today's news in terms of wars and rumors of wars, economic power, viruses, human rights, and for a long time, the persecution of Bible-believing Christians. Since the Communist Revolution and the Cultural Revolution, they have imprisoned and persecuted millions of people. And it's been reported they persecuted millions of people from Mao to the new Mao, Xi Jinping. The CCP has governed China like an iron-like fist. Things that they have implemented over the years, perhaps you've heard of these, devastating farming policies, the infamous one-child policies, from social credit score to digital currency to the new surveillance to artificial intelligence, and they seem to be winning that war, according to many analysts. The CCP has been a force to be reckoned with, and they have been given carte blanche by the governments of the world and the organizations of the world, like the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. They have been touted and recognized as the model for the new horizon for the new future of humanity. The focus of this video is to deal with their financial crisis, their food crisis, and the population crisis. Now, let's begin with the population crisis. China is officially going down in populations. Massive amount, dropped by almost 1 million people compared to last year, and its situation is very worrisome to the CCP and to Xi Jinping. Not only how it will affect China's economy, but how it will affect the rest of the world. So what's going on? A big fluctuation in China's population and will affect quite a number of people. Late last year, China released the population numbers, and for the first time in several generations, it was lower than the previous year, almost by 1 million people lower. The population was reduced by more than the population of Helsinki, Oslo, Antwerp, in a downward trend. No doubt many experts believe it's only the beginning. India has already passed them up as the most populous nation on earth. And year by year, China will lose about 1.1% of the people. By 2030, they would have lost almost 10.5 million people, which is more than countries like Hungary, Switzerland, Bulgaria, Costa Rica, and Uruguay. And by the end of the century, China's population will be cut in half if this trend and the projections continue. If they are correct, the estimates could be around 600 million people. This is huge. Now, some people don't believe that, but these are the statistics, and this is the downward trend. Now, but why is this happening? I think that's the better question. Let's talk about the replacement rate. The replacement rate is simply what it takes for a population to remain stable. You have two parents, a mom and a dad. You have two children. The mom and dad continue to live, and they pass on. The two children take their place. That's called the replacement rate. Just minimum two, to keep the population stable. So it takes 2 children to be born per couple. Anything below, the nation's population will decline. US and Australia is about 1.6. The only thing keeping the population in the US growing, it's actually immigration. Japan is 1.3. China is 1.15, meaning that the population is dropping very rapidly. Partly it is the one-child China policy. It is the policy that they implemented last century. Basically, Chinese families can only have 1 child total. It was done to restrain the population explosion, and there were many things implemented like abortion and things like that kept the population from explosion, they said, because they just couldn't handle it. No, that law ended in 2016, and the families haven't had many children since. And after the law was taken away, the population in China is rapidly aging, with fewer citizens being born. But why? Why aren't they having many children? There is no law against it anymore. So the answer is very simply, they've gotten used to it, and the Chinese population or the society, they don't want to have many children. China's economy is based on growth. trading, wages, quality of life, and the expectation that life will get better and better each generation. That reality is starting to change, though. China's economy has been booming for quite a number of years, but now it's been slowing down considerably, and the quality of life has plateaued, and it's already been happening way before the lockdowns. So it wasn't because of the lockdowns, it happened before. So families don't see life as a better life for their children than they had, meaning that their parents expected, and generations before expected their children to have a better life than they had, but that's no longer the case. So millions of Chinese are choosing not to have children, and that creates a vicious cycle. There are less people to grow the economy gets worse, and people choose to have less children, and it creates a vicious cycle. As less and less people want to have children, less and less people enter the workforce, less and less the economy grows, and therefore people don't want to have children because they see an economic downward trend. As you see the vicious cycle, it makes sense. The economic life will only get better if more people are added to the workforce. That's the way it works. So fewer children means that financial growth will slow down and decline. One example is the manufacturing orders. From the US, is down 40 to 50%. From Europe, it's about the same. By 2035, it is estimated that the National Pension Fund of China will be bankrupt, which means a terrible future for China due to mainly the one-child policy that they implemented last century. Problem is not just China, but it's actually for the rest of the world. There's consequences at large. Let's look at Japan. Japan for a long time was called the economic dynamo of Asia. Last century, it was expected to surpass even the US. Well, it didn't happen. It went through a horrible period of recession. We're still in a recession, like 2 decades of recession, losing 10 million people since 2010. Japan's population has been declining for more than a decade, and they're in a death spiral as they have an aging population and less people being born. Like I said, 10 million people lost since 2010, and it's expected to lose another 20 million, expected to lose 20 million, by 2030. That's only 7 years away. Japan is feeling it in the economy and the reduction in home prices, and they're worried about the pension fund due to the smaller workforce entering the workforce and a much larger growing retirement class. Japan will decline economically as less and less people will contribute to the economy. China faces the same problem, but in a much larger scale. Japan's population is 123 million people. China is 1.4 billion people. So you see the comparison. But what about other nations? Well, India has passed China's population earlier this year, and the economy of India has become wealthier and passed up the United Kingdom as the world's 5th largest economy, and some have estimated it can even pass up the United States someday. Another winner will be in Latin America. That will be Mexico. They've already benefited from the manufacturing work that used to go to China. The cost of manufacturing in China has risen exponentially, so high many companies in the US and in Europe do not want to send their work to China. They actually are opting to go to Mexico. In fact, it'll save on costs, and also the proximity to Latin America from the US and from Europe. It's actually causing them to send their work there. But also the fact that many countries have grown weary of China's espionage. Now, let's summarize this. Some companies are leaving China, partly in a lot of ways because of the espionage and their draconian rules. A smaller population of workers in China will be able to fulfill foreign, or will not be able to fulfill foreign orders. So because of the fewer population, they're going to further reduce China's influence and power over the globe. So more companies leaving, less investment coming into China, more investment leaving China, a smaller population, reduced workforce, less orders being fulfilled. It's a vicious cycle, and China's influence and power will be reduced. Now, some nations are very happy about this. In fact, as many consider the CCP an enemy, they're encouraged in the South China Sea, claiming these islands as their own in the same ocean in which Vietnam and the Philippines and Taiwan are claiming that these islands are theirs. But China claims that they are theirs. and they're using them as military bases. They're actually building islands, which is a whole technology in and of itself, but that's for a different video. China's population decline is not isolated. Take a look at this. Around the world, birth rates are declining everywhere. In the developed Western world, the same thing is happening. The U.S. sits at about 1.6 birth rate, which is below the 2.0 needed. As mentioned earlier, it is growing only. The population is only growing due to immigration, meaning that the U.S. population has plateaued. And the European Union is about 1.53. And in Australia and New Zealand is the same. Very similar to Canada, the United Kingdom, Russia, continental Europe. There's just not enough people being born to keep the population stable. South Korea is a big problem. South Korea is 1.1, which is a severe problem that the government is actually paying couples to have children, providing them monthly payments, basically not enough people being born, replacing those who would inevitably die. Whereas the birth rates, where are the birth rates higher? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, the answer is Africa and the Middle East. Europe is 1.53, as we talked about it earlier. Africa is much higher. Tanzania is 4.83, meaning that just about 5 children are being born for every woman in Tanzania. That's one of the top of the list, but it's not the top of the list because Niger is 7, almost 7 children per woman in Niger, which Niger is having all kinds of civil unrest, civil war issues. And I guess civil unrest and civil war issues are part of Africa's new agenda at this moment, which is obviously a coincidence, right? As more people, more nations see the opportunities in Africa, the governments become unstable. But that's for a different video. While China and the West decline, Africa is set to explode in the next coming years in terms of population and wealth. While most people think the problem is overpopulation, the reality is that it's decreasing, and the calls for depopulation by many in the media, by many in different forums, perhaps is being effective. Economy and money and wealth are going to change in the next few decades, and the power is going to shift from the West and East toward the Middle East into Israel, which is a very interesting scenario if you know Bible prophecy. China's in trouble, no doubt. Population, food crisis, economic crisis. Xi Jinping is in trouble. The economy is in trouble. People are protesting, and the military seems to be turning against Xi Jinping. So what do you think? Is China the kings of the East? Will these economic problems, the population problems, cause them to do an incursion into the Middle East? Will they be one of the kings of the East? Will they be relevant in the near future? Will the drums of war continue in the South China Sea and in Taiwan as they seek to reunify Taiwan with mainland China? Well, all these is very interesting. Let us know what you think. We'll continue our series on China and the CCP in the next couple of videos. We thank you for watching. And if you want to watch more videos like this regarding Bible prophecy and what's going on in the world today, you can go to our YouTube page, Devore Truth, or visit our website, ccodtruth.org. We also have a Facebook page. We would love to hear from you. Drop us a note and let us know what God is doing in your life. We love to hear from you. Keep looking up. Jesus is returning very soon, and may the Lord bless you.